Welcome back to the seventh and last part of my video series around the ITIL 4 Foundation. My main goal is to help you to succeed on your ITIL 4 Foundation certification journey. In this video I'm going to talk about the 15 practices you need to understand for the foundation exam. Hi, I'm Wieger, ITIL Master and Ambassador. As promised in the introduction video, I would share per video which areas of the syllabus I'm going to talk about. In this video, the practices. 7 practices where you need to know in detail, including their purpose. For another 8 practices, you need to understand the purpose of the practice. Please study these well. You can expect 17 questions out of the 40 questions on the practices. All questions are at Bloom's level 2, meaning you need to know the understanding of the concepts, methods, and principles. Some of the definitions you will see later again in this video. However, for a good refresher, the definitions that you need to be able to recall as part of the different practices, I will mention a few more definitions later in the video. IT asset, any financial valuable component that can contribute to the delivery of an IT product or service. Configuration item or CI, any component that needs to be managed in order to deliver an IT service. Change, the addition, modification or removal of anything that could have a direct or indirect effect on services. Incident, an unplanned interruption to a service or reduction in the quality of a service. Problem, a cause or potential cause of one or more incidents. Known error, a problem that has been analyzed but has not been resolved. Event, any change of state that has significance for the management of a service or other configuration item. There are 3 types of events: informational, warning, and exception events. The term infrastructure did confuse me a lot in the beginning when I started my ITIL journey, mainly a link towards my background. To help you not to fall in the same trap, a quick description on what is meant with infrastructure from an ITIL perspective. IT infrastructure is the physical and/or virtual technology, resources such as servers, storage, networks, client hardware, middleware, and operating system software that provide the environments needed to deliver IT services. This includes any configuration item a customer uses to access the service or consume a product. IT infrastructure may be managed by the service provider or by an external supplier as dedicated, shared, or cloud services. I will cover some more definitions in the next slide, but not exam material, but nevertheless good to be able to recall them. First up, the continual improvement practice. The ITIL continual improvement model. What is the vision? Does the improvement fit with the organizational vision? Where are we now? Do not just start, validate the starting point. Where do we want to be? Clearly define the future target state. How do we get there? Create the improvement plan, preferably as iteratively as possible. Execute the improvement plan. Make it all happen. Start implementing the improvement plan. Did we get there? Validate a new target state. Measure the results. Validate the objectives. Keep the momentum going. Part celebration, but also the starting point for the next iteration. Evaluate what did we learn in this iteration. And very important, do keep this statement back in your mind. Do not try to improve anything that should not be there. Never improve waste activities. Try to stop doing them. Covering some definitions from the practice. Improvement, a deliberate introduced change that results in increased value for one or more stakeholders. Not on the slide, a value, a benefit or usefulness for one or more stakeholders. Vision, a defined aspiration of what an organization would like to become in the future. A vision is very important. Check it out on Google and check a few of the companies you know. You all They all will have their vision published. It is the basis for the strategy and direction of the company. In some companies you will see a department or division vision, which is derived from the company vision, all designed to achieve the overall vision of the company. This is not restricted to profit organizations. You always also will see this with non-profit organizations. Improvement Register, or CIR. A database or structured document used to record and manage improvement initiatives through their life cycles. The register can be at company level, department level. It can be very advanced or just a simple spreadsheet. Feedback loop. Part of the output of an activity that is used for new input. Feedback is key in everything we do, hence also for continual improvement. Practice success factor, a complex functional component of a practice that is required for the practice to fulfill its purpose. Or to reword this a bit, it is already in the name, a factor important for the practice to achieve its goal, be successful. I also spent a video on continual improvement. Please look at that video for a further in-depth understanding of the ITIL 4 continual improvement model. The purpose of the continual improvement practice is to ensure that an organization's practices and services remain in sync with evolving business requirements. This is achieved through ongoing enhancement to products, services, practices, or any other elements related to the management of products and services. To give an example, imagine a team that creates and maintains a product. They regularly review their processes and practices to ensure they stay up to date with industry trends and user needs. Or what is the competition doing? If they notice any inefficiencies or areas for improvement, they adjust their development process, tools, or documentation. This ongoing effort to enhance their products and services aligns with the continual improvement practice. You do not need to remember the purpose word for word, but you need to know what the purpose of the practice is, what it means, and what is its goal. The key activities of the continual improvement practice include encouraging continual improvement across the organization. It needs to be embedded and supported top-down. Everyone has a role to play in continual improvement. Securing time and budget for continual improvement. Bigger initiatives will require funding and time to execute them. You also will need to manage continual improvement. Identifying and logging improvement opportunities. All layers in the organization should be able to log improvement opportunities. Often the best ideas come from the operational teams. There needs to be an easy method for everyone to register opportunities for improvements across the organization. Assessing and prioritizing improvement opportunities. Try not to do them all at once. It can be overwhelming for the teams involved. That one might even be impossible. Do not try to boil the ocean. Progress iteratively. Making business cases for improvement actions. Linked to the second bullet, we will need to create business cases to justify the fundings, benefits, and usefulness of the opportunity. Planning and implementing improvements. As we cannot execute all the opportunities at once, we will need to prioritize and plan the different improvements. Measuring and evaluating improvement results. Coordinating improvement activities across the organization. We can have several improvement initiatives. We need to keep a holistic view on the improvements across the organizations. We need to make sure these several initiatives are not working counterproductive. Next up, the change enablement practice. The purpose of the change enablement practice is to maximize the number of successful service and product changes by ensuring that the risks have been properly assessed, authorized changes to proceed, and managing the change schedule. Quickly a reminder, the definition of a change. A change is the addition, modification, or removal of anything that could have a direct or indirect effect on services. Change enablement is not the same as release management. This sometimes is a bit confusing. The primary objective of change enablement is to enable changes with a minimum disruption to IT service. This is done by applying as much as possible standardized methods and procedures. The release management practice ensures that all infrastructure components are properly integrated, tested, and compatible with existing systems. This is outside change enablement. Change enablement activities include logging, assessing, and authorizing changes, conducting regular change advisory board meetings, managing change schedules, and closing change requests. Release management activities include planning, designing, building, configuring, testing, and deploying releases using deployment management practices. It is important to distinguish change enablement from organizational change management. Organizational change management manages the people aspects of changes to ensure that improvements and organizational transformation initiatives are implemented successfully. Change enablement is usually focused on changes in products and services. There are three types of changes: standard, normal, and emergency changes. Standard changes: low risk, pre-authorized, and well-documented changes. For instance, simple service requests. Standard incident resolutions fall into this category, but also self-service changes done by a user or customer are standard changes. In this case, for the change, a shift-left approach has been applied. Normal changes: unknown, medium, or high-risk changes, which require additional due diligence for planning and control. Normal changes often make use of change models for efficiency. A change model is a repeatable model for a particular type of change. Normal changes are often triggered with a request for change, RFC. Emergency changes: a change that must be introduced as soon as possible. A change must be implemented, for example, to resolve a particular situation, either an incident or to prevent an incident. In some circumstances, bypassing or shortcutting the standard practices. However, where possible, it is always advisable to follow normal change. Not on the slide, the change schedule. The change schedule is used to help to plan changes, assist in communication, avoid conflicts, and assign resources. A picture from the practice which I like. Besides the type of changes, there's also the scale of the different changes. The very big major changes runs as projects, either following a waterfall or agile approach. Major single changes, medium or minor changes, and the business as usual changes, all following the change release, deployment, and enablement practices. Some definitions from the change enablement practice. I mentioned some of them already in the previous slides. Change model: a repeatable approach to the management of a particular change. I can really recommend making use of change models. It does improve efficiency of the practice. Change authority: a person or group responsible for authorizing change. Depending on the type of change, it is best to delegate this authority to operational level where applicable. The CEO of a company should not be in charge of authorizing all changes. RFC, request for change: description of a proposed change used to initiate change enablement. An RFC often uses a template to initiate change enablement. Change: a change is the addition, modification, or removal of anything that could have a direct or indirect effect on services. Next up, incident management. The purpose of incident management practice is to minimize the negative impact of incidents by restoring normal service operations as quickly as possible. Just to refer back to the definitions I mentioned at the beginning of this video: incident, an unplanned interruption to a service or reduction in the quality of a service. Incidents can be very small or major, impacting for customers. Organizations need to arrange their processes to be able to deal with these incidents, even if a major incident causes the use of disaster recovery plans. These are described in the service continuity practice. Again, a few definitions. Incident: an unplanned interruption to a service or reduction in the quality of a service. Incident model, a repeatable approach to the management of a particular type of incident. Major incident, an incident with significant business impact requiring an immediate coordinated resolution. Workaround, a solution that reduces or eliminates the impact of an incident or problem for which a full resolution is not yet available. Some workarounds reduce the likelihood of incidents. When a user reports an incident, this incident needs to be registered in the incident management system. Most common references are critical, high, medium, and low as severity. These severities are agreed and are documented with the service consumers in service level agreements, combined with the expected time incidents to be resolved, MTTR, which stands for mean time to resolve. Incidents do happen. It is the way how companies deal with quick incident resolution is what counts. It has a huge impact on customer satisfaction. When incidents are noticed, this can be by the service customer, reactive, or by the service provider, proactive. The incidents need to be registered in an incident management system as mentioned before. Incident can be matched to aid incident resolution. Knowledge management system, configuration management system, and problem management systems also play a crucial role here. With the current evolution, you can see more and more AIOps systems being deployed to predict and prevent incidents from causing impact and reduce service. When the first AIOps system was introduced is unknown to me, but Gartner used the term AIOps in 2016 for the first time. AIOps stands for Artificial Intelligence for IT Operations. As this slide already illustrates, incidents can be resolved in many ways. Sometimes a user can resolve an incident using the self-service tools or with the help of the available knowledge systems to resolve an incident. In other cases, the service desk is asked for assistance. For more complex cases, an incident gets escalated to a resolver team where specialists investigate the incident. This also can involve a supplier or partner in the incident resolution. With major incidents where it is unknown where the fault exactly lies, a team of specialists are investigating from various areas until the area of the incident is clear and the relevant resolver team resolves the incident. This is called swarming. In critical situations, a business continuity plan might come into play to activate a disaster recovery plan to resolve a critical incident. Policies and workflows should be included for documenting and redirecting of any incidents that are submitted as incidents, but which should actually be dealt with or managed as a service request or a change. Next, problem management. The purpose of problem management practice is to reduce the likelihood and impact of incidents by identifying actual and potential causes of incidents and managing workarounds and known errors. Problem management activities are very closely related to incident management. Activities from these two practices may complement each other. For example, identifying the causes of an incident is a problem management activity that might lead to incident resolution, but it may also conflict. For example, investigating the cause of an incident might delay actions needed to restore service. Also, a few definitions related to problem management. Problem, a cause or potential cause of one or more incidents. I already mentioned swarming when I talked about incident management. Here the official definition, swarming, is used also as problem management. Swarming, a technique for solving various complex tasks. In swarming, multiple people with different areas of expertise work together on a task until it becomes clear which competencies are the most relevant and needed. Workaround, a solution that reduces or eliminates the impact of an incident or problem for which a full resolution is not yet available. Some workarounds reduce the likelihood of incidents. Known error, a problem that has been analyzed but has not been resolved. Problem management has three phases: problem identification, problem control, and error control. Problem Identification can either be reactive due to one or more incidents or proactive, reported by a supplier or from a user community. In the problem identification, the problem is reviewed. Is it a valid problem? Is it applicable for the organization? For instance, a proactive problem about a specific software solution might not being used anymore, hence not a valid problem for the organization. Once a problem is validated, its initial urgency and impact is assessed and defined. Next phase is the problem control phase. In this phase, the problem is analyzed, its root cause investigated. Often several teams are working together to find the root cause, also called swarming. Besides problem analysis, also possible workarounds are being documented whilst there is not a systemic solution for the problem. The impact and urgency is reassessed to properly prioritize the problem. As not all problems can be dealt with at the same time, there are more tasks to be dealt with. Maybe other problems which are still being investigated. It also can mean that a problem due to its low impact and low probability is being closed. Recommendation for incident resolution based on an understanding of the causes are developed, recorded and communicated to the relevant teams. These can be systemic resolutions or workarounds for incidents. The last phase is the error control phase. In this phase, the known errors are constantly monitored, and changes are initiated to resolve problems for which a resolution has been found. Problems get closed. The problem is solved. The risk of incidents associated with the problem is removed or decreased to an acceptable level, or the problem no longer affects the organization. Many known errors remain open for a long time if they cannot be efficiently resolved, and they keep affecting services. In these cases, the organization may focus on maximizing the effectiveness and efficiency of incident handling, sometimes to the level of fully automated detection and resolution. But the problem record should remain open and periodically reviewed. Next, service request management. The purpose of service request management practice is to support the agreed quality of a service by handling all predefined user-initiated service requests in an effective and user-friendly manner. As it did with the other practices, some definitions. What is a service request? A request from a user or a user-authorized representative that initiates a service action which has been agreed as a normal part of service delivery. Usually these are standard changes, pre-authorized and well documented. Service request model, a repeatable, predefined approach to the fulfillment of a particular type of service request. Request catalog, a view of the service catalog, providing details and service requests for existing and new services which is made available to the user. A bit more on the request catalog. There is a separate practice around service catalog management. A service catalog has structured information about all services and service offering of a service provider relevant for a specific target audience. In this case, the user has a specific view of the service catalog showing only the information relevant to the user. A service request can contain several elements. A request for a service action, a request for information, which can be anything, a request for how to use a service or the opening times of a shop, a request for the provisioning of a service or a service, for instant delivery or a virtual service or a mobile phone. Feedback, which can be a compliment or a complaint, a request for access to a resource, service or service offering. Service requests are usually standard changes which can be requested by an authorized representative of the customer. Besides being agreed beforehand and part of the service catalog, also the lead times for service requests are predefined. Where possible, the service provider should strive for as much as automation as possible, creating a self-service experience for the users. Service request management should follow these guidelines. Service requests and their fulfillment should be standardized and automated to the greatest degree possible. Policies should be established regarding what service requests will be fulfilled with limited or even no additional approvals so that fulfillment can be streamlined. The expectations of users regarding fulfillment times should be clearly set, based on what the organization can realistically deliver. Opportunities for improvement should be identified and implemented to produce faster fulfillment times and take advantage of automation. Policies and workflows should be included for the documenting and redirection of any requests that are submitted as service requests, but which should actually be managed as incident or changes. Next, the service desk management practice. The purpose of the service desk practice is to capture demand for incident resolution and service request. It should also be the entry point and single point of contact for the service provider for all users. The focus of the service desk is to provide support for people and business rather than simply resolve technical issues. Part of this role is to capture and redirect issues that are out of scope of the service desk. They need to be a one-stop shop so that users feel comfortable approaching them for whatever they need, from a very complex query to a request for a smartphone. It is important that the service desk is well prepared as for any query they need to pass on. They need to know to whom or where they need to pass the query to. This creates moments of truth for the users or customer. And yes, again, a few definitions. Omnichannel communications, unified communications across multiple channels based on sharing information across the channels and providing a seamless communication experience. Service empathy, the ability to recognize, understand, predict, and project the interests, needs, intentions, and experience of another party in order to establish, maintain, and improve the service relationship. Service empathy is a very crucial skill for the first service desk agents. I already mentioned it on the previous slide, moments of truth. Any episode in which the customer or user encounters an aspect of the organization and gets an impression of the quality of its service. It is the basis for setting and fulfilling client expectations and ultimately achieving client satisfaction. This can be either a good or a bad experience. The better a service desk agent is prepared, the greater the chances the customer will experience a positive moment of truth. Key skills for the service staff should include excellent customer service skills, empathy, incident analysis and prioritization, effective communication, and emotional intelligence. A bit more on omnichannel communication and what is meant with it. As you can see in this picture, the customer can contact the service provider via different channels. The experience for the customer will be seamless. No matter which channel he's used to start his communication, the customer does not have to start all over again. The opposite of omnichannel is multi-channel, where the customer will visit a shop, for instance, after having had contact with the service provider already via another channel. He will have to start from scratch. There is no information sharing between the different channels. As the previous slide describes the omnichannel communications, it also highlights all the different channels that can lead to the service desk. There can be many different channels that find their way to the service desk. Email, chat, websites, phone calls, social media, etc. Depending on the services supported by the service desk, a subset or all channels will be available to reach the service desk. Next practice is the service level management. The purpose of the service level management practice is to set clear business-based targets for service levels and to ensure the delivery of services is properly assessed, monitored, and managed against these targets. Service level management provides the end-to-end visibility of the organization's services. To achieve this, service level management establishes shared views of the services and target service levels with customers. Service level management ensures that the organization meets the defined service levels through the collection, analysis, storage, and reporting of the relevant metrics for the identified services. Server level management performs service reviews to ensure that the current set of its services continue to meet the needs of our organization and its customers. Server level management captures and reports on service issues, including performance against defined service levels. As with other practices for which you need to understand in detail some definitions. Service level. One or more metrics that define the expected or achieved service quality. Service level agreement, a documented agreement between a service provider and a customer that identifies both services required and the expected level of service. With SLAs, it's important to keep a good look on the services. The figures might all be good, but the service customer has a different customer or user experience, the so-called watermelon effect. All metrics look green, but the customer or user experience is not reflecting the same results. It is red on the inside. Customer or user experience, the sum of functional and emotional interactions with a service and service provider as perceived by the customer and or user of that service. Utility and warranty. I already talked about them in my video around the key concept of service management and or important when looking at service level management. Utility, the functionality offered by a product or service to meet a particular need. Utility can be summarized as what the service does and can be used to determine whether service is fit for purpose. To have utility, a service must either support the performance of the consumer or remove constraints from the consumer. Many services do both. Warranty, assurance that a product or service will meet agreed requirements. Warranty can be summarized as how the service performs and can be used to determine whether a service is fit for use. Warranty typically addresses such areas as the availability of the service, its capacity, levels of security, continuity. A service may be said to provide acceptable assurance or warranty if all defined and agreed conditions are met. It is fit for use. For any service, it's important that both utility and warranty are fulfilled to create the desired outcome. Server level agreements are agreements as mentioned before. It is a two-way process. It is important for the service provider to understand what the services means and does for the customer, which value is created. In the end, the customer purchased the service to get a job done. This should be reflected in the SLA. Some of the key requirements for successful SLAs include: they must be related to a defined service in the service catalog. Otherwise, they are simply individual metrics without a purpose that do not provide adequate visibility or reflect the service perspective. SLA should relate to defined outcomes and not simply operational metrics. This can be achieved with a balanced bundle of metrics, such as customer satisfaction and key business outcomes. SLA should reflect an agreement, EA, engagement and discussion between the service provider and the service consumer. It is important to involve all stakeholders, including partners, sponsors, users, and customers. SLAs must be simply written and easy to understand and use for all parties. Metrics can be divided into two categories: operational and business metrics. Operational metrics are the low-level indicators of various operational activities. Business metrics, these can be any business activity that is deemed useful or valuable by the customer and used as a means of gauging the success of the service. Outputs of the operational and business metrics are used in the service review meetings between the service provider and its customers. For the practices I talked about till now, you need to understand in detail. For the next practices, you need to understand their purpose. Let's get started with the information and security practice. The purpose of the information security management practice is to protect the information needed by the organization to conduct its business. This includes understanding and managing risks to the confidentiality, integrity, and availability of information, as well as other aspects of information security such as authentication and non-repudiation. Me being a non-native English speaker, I struggled the first time I read the term non-repudiation. Like other teams, while you're on this journey, which might not make sense to you, do not hesitate to look them up. There are great helpful tools out there, for instance, Google. Non-repudiation means the ability to ensure that a party cannot deny the authenticity or integrity of a message or transaction that they have sent or received. It is an essential aspect of cybersecurity because it helps prevent fraud and disputes. It needs to be auditable. The required security is established by means of policies, processes, behaviors, risk management and controls, which must maintain a balance between prevention, detection and correction. A bit more on prevention, ensuring that security incidents do not occur. Detection, rapidly and reliable, detecting incidents that cannot be prevented. Correction, recovering from incidents after they have been detected. The purpose of this relationship management practice is to establish and nurture the links between the organization and the stakeholders at strategic and technical levels. It includes the identification, analysis, monitoring, and continual improvement of relationships with and between stakeholders. You might get a question about relationship management, for instance, if it plays a role at operational level. It is not. It focuses on technical and strategic levels. The relationship management practice ensures stakeholder needs and drivers are understood and products and services are prioritized appropriately. Stakeholder satisfaction is high and a constructive relationship between the organization and the stakeholders is established and maintained. Customer priorities for new or changed products and services in alignment with desired business outcomes are effectively established and articulated. Any stakeholder complaints and escalations are handled well through a systematic, yet formal, process. Products and services facilitate value creation for the service consumers, as well for the organization. The organization facilitates value creation for all stakeholders in line with strategy and priorities. Conflicting stakeholder requirements are mediated appropriately. Mostly this is focused on service consumers, sponsors, customers and users. However, all stakeholders should be considered for relationship management, both internal and external stakeholders. The purpose of the supplier management practice is to ensure that the organization's suppliers and their performances are managed appropriately to support seamless provision of quality products and services. This includes creating an optimized sourcing strategy, as well as closer, more collaborative relationships with key suppliers to uncover and realize new value and reduce the risk of failure. Part of the supplier management practice is also defining its supplier strategy, sometimes called sourcing strategy. How to obtain products and services as efficiently as possible to support a company achieving its goals or reaching its vision with a minimized risk. This includes negotiating the new contracts and services, managing the contracted suppliers, and holding service reviews with the suppliers. Activities that are central to the supplier management practice are creating a single point of visibility and control to ensure consistency, maintaining a supplier strategy, policy, and contract management information, negotiating and agreeing contracts and arrangements, managing relationships and contracts with internal and external suppliers, managing supplier performance. The purpose of the IT asset management practice is to plan and manage the full lifecycle of all IT assets to help the organization to maximize value obtained via IT assets through products and services, control costs and optimize the total costs of ownership, manage risk and reduce risk and vulnerability exposure associated with IT assets, support decision-making about purchase, reuse, retirement and disposal of assets, meet regulatory and contractual requirements. Just to refer back to the definitions I mentioned at the beginning of this video. IT asset, any financially viable component that can contribute to delivery of an IT product or service. The scope of IT asset management typically includes all software, hardware, networking, cloud services, and client services. The purpose of the monitoring and event management practice is to support the normal operations of service components by observing, analyzing, and appropriately responding to changes of state in those components. Just to refer back to the definitions I mentioned at the beginning of this video. Event: any change of state that has significance for the management of a service or other configuration item. Events are typically recognized through notifications created by an IT service, configuration item, CI, or monitoring tool. There are three types of events: informational events, warning events, and exception events, which all require the respective response. Monitoring part of the practice focuses on the systematic observation of the services and the CIs. This should be done in a highly automated manner. The event management part focuses on recording and managing those monitored changes of state that are defined by the organization as an event. Monitoring is needed for event management, but not all monitoring results in events. Event: any change of state that has significance for the management of a service or other configuration item. As I mentioned before, the three different types of events. Informational events. These do not require action at the time they are identified, but analyzing the data gathered from them at a later date may uncover desirable proactive steps that can be beneficial to the service. Warning events, which allow action to be taken before any negative impact is actually experienced by the business. For example, donor of a printer almost being empty. Exception events, which indicate that a breach to an established norm has been identified and require action, even though business impact may not yet have been experienced. For example, a redundant component stopped functioning. The purpose of release management practice is to make new or changed services and features available for use. Release: a version of a service or other configuration item or a collection of configuration items that's made available for use. A release may comprise many different infrastructure and application components that work together to deliver new or changed functionality. It may also include documentation, training, updated processes or tools, and any other components that are required. Sometimes change enablement is confused with release management. These are not the same. Change enablement activities include logging, assessing, and authorizing changes, conducting regular change advisory board meetings, managing change schedules, and closing change requests. Release management activities include planning, designing, building, configuring, testing, and deploying releases using deployment management practices. More about deployment management practice later in this video. Before reading this one, first quickly a definition on a configuration item. Any component that needs to be managed in order to deliver an IT service. The purpose of service configuration management practice is to ensure that accurate and reliable information about the configuration of services and the configuration items that support them is available when and where it is needed. This includes information on how configuration items are configured and the relationships between them. Service configuration management collects and manages information about a wide variety of configuration items, typically including hardware, software, networks, buildings, people, suppliers, and documentation. Services are also treated as configuration items, and configuration management helps the organization to understand how the many configuration items that contribute to each service work together. The figure on this slide illustrates a simplified diagram of a service. The purpose of the deployment management practice is to move new or changed hardware, software, documentation, processors, or any other components to live environments. It may also be involved in deploying components to other environments for testing or staging. There are a number of approaches that can be used for deployments. Phase deployment. The new or changed components are deployed to just part of the production environment at a time, for example to users in one office or one country. This operation is repeated as many times as needed until the deployment is complete. Continuous delivery. Components are integrated, tested, and deployed when they are needed, providing frequent opportunities for customer feedback loops. Big bang deployment. New or changed components are deployed to all targets at the same time. Pool deployment. New or changed software is made available in a controlled repository, and users download the software to client devices when they choose. As release management and deployment management can be a bit confusing, a bit more on the two practices. Release management versus deployment management. Release management. Release management is a practice that focuses on planning, coordinating, and controlling the build and test of a release of new or updated IT services, application, and infrastructure components into a secure library where it is ready to be moved to the live operational environment by deployment management. Deployment management is a practice that takes fully tested releases from the secure development library to the live supported environment. This includes operational support, documentation and training, user promotion, deployment planning, and early life support for the operations staff. Risk management. It is not part of the foundational list of practices, but in today's world, so very important practice, hence I decided to add a purpose statement also for the risk management practice. It is in the end often referred to in other practices. The purpose of the risk management practice is to ensure that the organization understands and effectively handles risks. Managing the risk is essential to ensuring the ongoing sustainability of an organization and co-creating value for the customers. Risk management is an integral part of all organizational activities and therefore central to the organization's service value system. What's actually a risk? A risk is a possible event that could cause harm or loss or make it more difficult to achieve objectives. It also can be defined as uncertainty of outcome and can be used in the context of measuring the probability of positive outcomes as well as negative outcomes. To give an example, a new product might be more successful than we expected. Demand is higher than the capability we have built to meet the requested demand. Principles that apply to risk management. Risk is part of business. The organization should ensure that risks are appropriately managed. Risk management must be consistent across the organization. It is vital that risk management practices is managed holistically to achieve consistency across the organization. Risk management culture and behaviors are important. The appropriate culture and behaviors demonstrated at all levels of the organization, personnel are critical and must be embedded as part of the way we do things. We reached the end of this video, also the last video in this video series around ITIL 4 Foundation. For me personally, one of the most important modules in the ITIL framework. Like with building a house, it all starts with a solid foundation. In this specific video, I have been reading out a lot what comes directly from the practices. Keep in mind it is important to understand what the goals of the practices are. You do not need to remember them word for word. There's more value in for you if you understand the purpose, rather being able just to repeat the purposes and not understand the meaning or goal. That was it. I hope you liked the video series. Please do not hesitate to leave a comment or like the video. I obviously would appreciate if you subscribe to my channel. Thank you for watching this video.